Video games. They're played by millions of people around the world, and have an increasingly growing number of users almost every day. But like other types of media, we sometimes forget that real people spent years of their lives dedicated to creating them. One of the biggest names in video games is the head of Nintendo, Shigeru Miyamoto, a man who has revolutionized the video game world with innovation, inspiration, and countless characters and worlds. He's probably best known for creating some of the most influential and critically acclaimed games of all time, including The Legend of Zelda, Star Fox, Pikmin, and of course, the Super Mario Bros. But he didn't become the legendary game designer he is overnight. It took him many years and hundreds upon hundreds of games. Back in 1981, Miyamoto first came up with the concept for Mario, which, considering how immensely popular the character is no small feat. Odds are you've played at least one of the games he's been featured in, whether it's Super Mario 64, Mario Kart, or the classic side-scroller. Regardless, this character is known by millions and has been called the video game equivalent of Mickey Mouse. During the late 70s, Miyamoto was tasked with presenting a game that could resonate with North American audiences. The idea he presented was a love triangle between a carpenter, who would later become a plumber, a beautiful damsel, and a gorilla. The inspiration for this came from the cartoon Popeye, with Mario mirroring protagonist Popeye, Pauline mirroring Olive Oil, and Donkey Kong mirroring Bluto. This final product would be named Donkey Kong and would follow Mario as he tried to free his girlfriend from the giant ape. The game became a hit, and jump-started Miyamoto's career, allowing him to have more freedom in new games. This is where he would begin to truly show his ability to create. The amazing thing about Miyamoto is his thinking process. No matter the project he is given, he always tries to approach it in a different way. An example of this would be the way he attempts to teach people to play his games. Generally, games nowadays implement obvious ways of teaching the player, usually in the form of a tutorial. Miyamoto has challenged this method early on. Take the classic level in Super Mario Bros. Without realizing it, the basic mechanics of the game are presented just by having you play through the first level. Immediately when the level begins, we see a mushroom-like enemy approaching. Our initial reaction the first time we play is to avoid him. Then we have a question block which, when hit, pops out a coin. We later try this again, but this time a different mushroom comes out. Once again we try to jump over, but this time our head hits the top of the blocks and bounces us back into it. This causes Mario to grow, and allows the player to learn for themselves that there are mushrooms that are good. Essentially, through just playing the game, we've learned the basic mechanics without the use of a tutorial. This is Miyamoto's way of thinking. He wants people to think for themselves, and tries to incorporate that in his games. Even now, this method of game development is still being used 30 years later. This kind of thinking is what got him to become the head of one of the most famous video game companies in the world. Although, what truly sets him apart from the other game developers is his ability to constantly innovate. Things like the Wii, a cheap console with motion controls. This gamble led to one of the best-selling video game consoles of all time, and it opened up a whole new way for people to create and play games. Even the concepts for games he comes up with are so well received, probably because they're so relatable. Growing up as a young boy, Miyamoto didn't really have any toys to play with, so he made his own out of wood and string. He put on performances with homemade puppets and made cartoon flipbooks, always trying to make people laugh and smile. As he grew into his teenage years, he began exploring the forest behind his house, where he eventually came across a small cavern. This is where he would spend his summer, exploring the dark passageways and chambers. These experiences have directly influenced the games he's created. Those forests and caves, they're what inspired The Legend of Zelda, where a young boy, Link, explores forests and caves. He also has a sheepdog named Piku, which provided the inspiration for the game Nintendogs. As an adult, Miyamoto loves gardening. This is where he saw a group of ants working together to bring back food. And this is what inspired him to create Pikmin, a game about commanding an army of tiny colorful creatures that build bridges, destroy obstacles, and carry objects, much like real ants. He attempts to put a small bit of himself into everything he makes, and this is why he is known as one of the greatest video game developers of all time. Just by looking at all the games he's created over the past 30 years makes you realize what this man stands for. Piloting spaceships and race cars? Exploring dungeons and rescuing princesses? These are all the things kids dream about. And that's what Miyamoto wants you to feel. He wants you to feel like a kid again through his games. Both the video game industry and the world in general would not be the same today without his contribution and innovation. He's a man who's now 64, yet still looks at the world through the eyes of a child. And this is what makes the things he creates so amazing.